Hi, I'm Ron Nutter, and this is another edition of Tech Bites with Ron Nutter. This time, I'm going to walk you through some steps on how to better protect your home network, especially if you've got IoT devices such as smart bulbs and smart outlets and streaming media receivers. And that starts now. Well, this has been something that has kind of come about from the postings you've seen from me where I was interviewed on the ABC affiliate here in Kansas City, and I've since done another video on that, and we're going to take it to the next level because I want you to start thinking about some things that are very easy to do and may sound harder than they really are. And much like, for those of you who remember the catalogs from some companies that are gone now and a couple that are still around where they had the good, better, best situation, that's kind of the way I'll be approaching this tonight or today, depending on when you're looking at this. And let's go ahead and switch over. Now, when you get started with your internet connection, you're basically going to have the internet connection, your provider, whatever it is, and then some sort of router, whether it is the one that your provider has as a part of their device that connects from their network and gives you connection to yours, or it may just be a box that does the conversion between, say, if it's the cable TV company, that and an Ethernet connection, and may have no firewall on it. You may get something other than a 192.168 or a 172.16 or a 10 dot address. It all depends on who's doing what, but that's where all of us start when we first get a network. And if you're using the router or / firewall that your provider has, I won't say given you, but installed as a way to connect it into their network, I would get something immediately, because you don't know how often they're updating it. They're not going to be watching for problems coming into your connection. They might catch something coming out of it, but it's you need to have a little more protection than what is probably just a very basic firewall. So that's for starters. Now, that's what we'll call a level 1 network, or just kind of getting started. Now, level 2 is something you've seen me talk about in the past called rat trap. And that is a very interesting device. So let me switch over here, and we're going to bring up my rat trap portal page. If I can spell it right here. There we go. And we will click. I got to drag something out of the way here so I can get into the portal. Now, this has been running for a little over a week at this point, and this is just watching my connection. If you think there's not problems on the internet, look at that little figure right there. That's what it has stopped. Now, right now, there's no live attacks or no penetrations trying to be attempted, but since last Saturday, here's 2 coming through from Netherlands, and that's the port that it's sensing that they're on. Those are never making it to the internet router that I've got. Now, in my case, it's from whatever company that Time Warner used to be. I've got their box in there, but the firewall is turned off. So I'm getting like a 68 something address in it. So this is what it's been recording for the past week. So you see Russia, United States, United Kingdom, Netherlands, China. Depending on where you are in the world, you probably will have some differences. And, like I said, these just came through a few minutes ago. You can go into attack events and see what is going on. You'll see some ports that you're going, why are they testing here? Well, that 8080 is testing for a web proxy, most likely. 5060 is testing for SIP, or Voice over Internet Protocol. 80, well, that's web traffic. You'll see some, let's flip to another page here, see if we can find 23. That's a fairly common protocol in network management. So this is the kind of thing, this is why we all need to think a little differently on the network. And that's where the rat trap is a good device. There are some others out there, but this is the only one that I found that can sit between your router and the internet provider, and it's what I'll call a transparent device. There is no configuration to it. You plug it in, it dials up to the mothership, you attach it to your account, that's it. So it's a very intelligent device. And much like I've said in the other video, it also doesn't care how you've got it plugged in. As long as you've got it plugged in to your network and to your provider's termination point, it starts working. So that at a minimum, so the internet here could be the provider's modem / firewall. Well, I would put Rat Trap. There are some other devices out there. I've not seen them yet, but the ones that everything that I've read, they are actually going inside the router or will be functioning as the router themselves. So this adds one more layer to the mix. So this is where I'm at right now. Now, level 3 is going to be, if I can get level 3 here there we go. No, I don't want to rename it. There we go. I was tapping on the wrong side of the pad. Now, this is the next stage of the network, and I'm not going to take credit for this design. Now, I've actually added some things to it, but for any of you who have watched Steve Gibson's Security Now podcast, it's been on for many years. I've actually interviewed him when I had another podcast running for a magazine I wrote for. Very sharp individual. That's a very good thing to start listening to when you've got interest in that area. But he came up with this design several years back, and there's been some refinements. So let's talk about what we're going to do. Okay, it goes to he called it 3 dumb routers. And there's several ways that you can approach this. So the core router, that's the main one where your internet connection comes into. Then you will go off to 2 separate routers. So you'll take the LAN port here. The WAN port will connect to the Rat Trap, which then connects to the internet provider. One LAN port here off the core router will go to your IoT router, and that's the one that all your smart bulbs, your streaming media receivers, anything that's not a computer like a laptop or a desktop you would use would terminate on this device. And we'll talk about more of that in just a minute. Then we have the secure network. That is the one where your laptops, tablets, whatever is not an IoT device would go through here. And if you have a lot of people over, you might want to consider adding a 4th router, and that would be for guest access, and have that one control down to where, or throttle down to where they can't consume all your bandwidth, because ultimately you're paying the bill, so you've got to protect this and this from resource starvation, especially if you've got a VoIP phone at home, especially if your internet, your alarm system is tied into it. You've got to protect yourself above all else. So what we're looking at here is you can buy, 3 routers. Pick the brand: Linksys, Netgear, D-Link. There is no really wrong choice, because the theory here is they first have to get through to this one and get past it before now they've got 2 other firewalls to go through. Now, here's what I suggest as the next step. Let's take it one step further. Use different brands for the IoT and secure network routers. Now, here's why. If they break through the core router, what's the first thing they're going to try to do? They're going to try to repeat that process at this point in the network. So if you have a different brand here and here, or brand B here, brand C here, that you're adding to the layer of difficulty in it. So at some point they're going to give up, because they're going to be looking for low-hanging fruit that's going to be easier to get into. Now, there's some addressing things we need to talk about. The first thing is, normally on the LAN side of a router / firewall, you have DHCP turned on. I'm going to tell you to turn it off, and here's why. In this diagram, with only having 2 devices downstream, there's really no advantage for it. Plus, in the event that the network does, you have a power outage and you're down for, say, an hour or so or more, this part of the connection will reestablish very quickly, because it's static IP addressing, and that's easy enough to do. If you start implementing some of this and are not sure, reach out to me. We can look at doing some sort of WebEx, or we'll do I'll do another video where I'll actually go through and set some of these devices up so that you can see this. But I'm in the process of starting to do that myself at this point. So this is where, you can, now some of the devices may not allow you to substantially change the addressing. So if you can't change to 10.0.0.0.0, and I've got /24, and those of you who deal with routers knows what that means. For those of you who are not dealing with network gear on a daily basis, that translates to a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So this would be 10.0.0.1. This could be 10.0.0.2 on the WAN side, 10.0.0.3. And you see these two other address ranges down here. That would be for the LAN side on these devices. So even though there's a firewall here and here, we're still keeping the addresses separate. Do you have to? No, but from a troubleshooting standpoint, if you see that IP address in where you're dealing in here, or however you look at the network, it gives you an idea of something to look at. Now, there's one more step, and this is not one that you have to do right away, but depending on how much equipment you have on your network or how many people in your family, you can look at something called a honeypot. Normally, this is something that only you see on larger corporate networks or university networks, or somebody who really wants to get in the hood and play with this kind of thing. I'm looking at a Linux distribution that will deploy on a Raspberry Pi that will go for the most common things. And basically, a honeypot, if you've never heard the term before, it presents itself as a vulnerable web server or a vulnerable Microsoft server or what have you. But there's the distributions I'm looking at has about 5 different things that are the most common. So if somebody does get through here and they find this, that may distract them enough, and to where if you've got any sort of alerting going on, that you will get an idea that, hey, somebody's knocking at the door and has gotten past here, and depending on your particular skill set, you may just shut this router down here right now and then maybe think about replacing it, or making sure you got new code on there, or reflashing the code that's already on there in case they've managed to plant something. So there's any number of possibilities, but it's all, you don't have to do things right away. It is something that is a one step at a time situation, but you do need to kind of look at the security a little bit differently. And to use the analogy of burying your head in the sand, oh, it's not going to happen to me. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when. Because in the past, I've run a double firewall situation on a home network, and one night I saw indications that somebody had broken through the outside firewall. I know a lot more about firewalls now than I did then, but that still is, as you get more and more of the smart devices out there, where it could be a thermostat, your refrigerator, washer and dryer. There's all sorts of possibilities there, but you need to think about things a little differently. So I've kind of laid out a broad brushstroke of, let's get back over here to the slide for that. So you've got an idea of something to look at. I'm not saying you have to do this whole thing. You could do something as little as like putting the rat trap in. That would be, an excellent first step. And then as you have the time, the money to do all this, then you can look at establishing different levels of security. Now, the initial design on this one was all 3 would be from the same manufacturer. That's where I differ a little bit, because if they get through one vulnerability here, that's going to make it that much easier for them to get through here. Now, for them to get through means they're already probably going to be a little bit higher level than your average hacker or script kiddie, pick your term that you want to use. But having the rat trap in front should slam the door on a good amount of that, if not all of it. But still, it's just a matter of adding some additional levels of security in this whole process by eventually putting a honeypot in, and it's just a matter of, you've got to protect yourself if nothing else. So this part is going to be showing up in the second version of my book. The first one should be out here within the next couple of weeks. I'll hopefully be getting most of it complete this weekend. Then I've got to go through some proofing and whatnot, but that will be out very shortly. If you have just seen this channel for the first time, please click on the subscribe button. Also, if you would click on the little bell icon, that way as I produce and release any other videos, you'll get notification on that. Maybe not the second they go up, but hopefully by the next time you log on, you will see that. And there are other ways to do it. One of the options I was looking at was to use a lower end WatchGuard firewall, and I reached out to them. They weren't interested. They didn't see that as their market. Well, I respectfully disagree that that is a market you could look at, and that is something that there are functionalities in that kind of device. Granted, you're going to have a yearly renewal on it, but much like that honeypot that we showed you, functionality similar to that is going to be in some of these lower end commercial devices. So that could save you another device on the network and add some functionality that you're not having at this point. So these are just things to think of. I've got links in the description for suggestions for each of these type of devices. I'll get the Rat Trap link put in there too. Those are affiliate links. So if you do happen to buy one of those, great. I appreciate that. But it also at least gives you some options to start looking at, because if you've got to save some money on doing it, then when you start looking at the IoT and secure networks, you can use a router of lesser capacity or capability on the IoT network, because a lot of the devices are not supporting 5 gig yet. Some are, but a lot don't. So you don't have to worry about as much throughput here. In fact, really, you want to limit some throughput here so that if something does go bonkers, that it's not going to be tying up as much of this. And here's the beauty of doing all 3 routers. If something happens and you know it's the IoT network, you turn the power off here. Now that's 2 seconds, you're done. So there are several advantages from doing this kind of thing. Again, thank you for your time. Everybody who clicks the subscribe button, I greatly appreciate that. If you've got any questions, please reach out to me, because I'll be happy to answer it as best I can, or we'll look at doing another video going into more of the details. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll see you again soon.